He is the Rams beat reporter for the OC Register, LA Daily News, and all the Southern California News Group newspapers. Former colleague. He is doing a fantastic job on the beat. When I was covering the Rams in 2022, I was doing poorly there. And then Adam comes in from the USC beat and takes off and does well. So Adam, a new father. He took the time to join us here on House of Horns. Let's bring in Adam Grossbart of the OC Register.
There we go.
What's up, guys? Gilberto, you were doing such a terrible job. They gave you a national job. So, thank you very much for that introduction.
I don't know why. I think they just want to get rid of me. And hey, here's a job opening. Go ahead and take it. But Adam, how's the beat treating you the last 2 years?
Beat's been good. It's been a nice change from the college game, especially some of the weirder things about covering USC. You just kind of never know what you're in for any given day over there. And it's been fun covering the Rams so far.
I don't know if I should put you in the spot, Adam, but are you liking the pro game better than all the NIL stuff and the recruiting and the college coaches and Lincoln Riley getting in trouble with some reporters every now and then?
I didn't have to write a single story about like Puka Nakua's big sponsorship summer. Like so much better than like tracing down like some odd dollars that an offense. No, it's nice to be, and it's just nice to be working with, to be building relationships and stuff like that. College coaches, not just Lincoln, but like college coaches in general can be very standoffish with media, and it doesn't really build like a working relationship in a lot of instances. So I've been enjoying working with
okay. Rams. That is good to know, Adam. And maybe one more question, because I don't know, but I'm kind of getting tired of people saying, oh, they're playing the college football video game, NCAA is back, this and that. Are you playing or don't care?
I pulled it out.
Okay, there you go. But you're not like tweeting about it every single day like some people, or are you? I don't know.
I mean, I don't have a lot to tweet about.
So besides the Rams.
Well, I don't have enough time to like play online, so there's no one I need to be trash talking. If I win or lose, it's against the computer. So that's just, it's humbling in its own way.
Okay, all right, yeah, I like you, Adam. So if you want to tweet about NCAA football, go ahead, but I'm tired of hearing about people taking LSU or Oregon to the national championship, whatever. But yeah,
no, you got to do it with the smaller programs, anyways. Like,
yeah, right.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah, you don't want to take USC all the way to the national championship game there. But Adam, to talk some Rams here real quick. I know you're still busy with you got the Rams doing the scrimmage with the Texans. There's a preseason finale, so we won't take too much of your time. I'll ask two questions here, and then I'll let Victor get in here. But just to start off, and people want to know about Matthew Stafford, he did return to practice. I think I saw 11 on 11. I'm following you on Twitter, or X as they call it there. But are you expecting to see Stafford out there in Houston against C.J. Stroud and this joint scrimmage here?
I'm not sure about the joint scrimmage. He's traveling for sure. They're not totally sure. They, want to avoid the just, as Sean calls it, the unscripted movements, where you're trying to sidestep a pass rush or whatever it is. And Stafford is a competitive guy. He will do competitive things in practice. He was diving for a tipped ball against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
He took off for a run yesterday at practice, much to Sean's chagrin. So I think it's possible they tried to protect him, but maybe they feel like after his partial practice yesterday that he might be ready. It's just soft tissue injuries. Who knows?
Yeah. Victor and I have been discussing, I think it's probably better to keep him safe there and just avoid an injury so close to the season. But
especially,
Adam, go ahead.
Especially you have like 60% of the starting offensive line isn't playing.
Yeah.
Jonah Jackson has started doing some stuff, but he's definitely not going to be an 11 on 11. And Alaric and Rob haven't even gotten out there. So
yeah, good thing is that a real game, because imagine Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. going up against those tackles there. And we were just telling people, hey, this backup plan is not the worst, but now when I think about it that way, I don't know.
They're not the worst, but like they're still, they're getting calloused, as they like to say. They're not calloused yet.
How about kind of a two-party here for me, and then I'll let Victor get in here. Update on Puka Nacua, and then with him being out, how has that really helped out the young guys like Jordan Whittington, who seems to be maybe it seems like a reach, but the next Puka Nacua, maybe the next DeMarcus Robinson, somewhere in the middle, we'll figure it out. But helping out the young guys like that, and then maybe Xavier Smith being a roster bubble guy who's really emerged here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's definitely been good for Xavier and Tyler Johnson for that matter. They've gotten some more first team reps and gotten to work with that offense and kind of make their case. I'm not sure still, like if they're going to go 6 receivers, 7 receivers. There's still some flexibility. They're going to only need to take 3 tight ends because Higbee's on PUP. So that gives them an option there. But so we'll see what happens there. Puka, I've seen moving around. He's starting to do some field work. He's not doing like, even plyometrics with the team yet, but he's working with trainers off to the sideline, which we didn't see a lot of like the first week after he injured the knee. So I think it seems like he's progressing. They're going to be very deliberate and slow with him. They don't feel a need to rush him back. He's a guy who plays a lot of snaps. So the more you can preserve his body, the better. Jordan Whittington has, Puka was never going to play in the preseason. So Jordan was always going to get those snaps that he did, but he has done some really nice stuff with that. The confluence of events that had to happen for Puka, right? Like Cooper had to be hurt, which otherwise Puka maybe plays like 10 snaps in that season opener last year. So because Cooper's hurt, Van Jefferson is there as the veteran, but he's not, you're hoping he can have a breakout year under those circumstances. Obviously didn't happen. And then Tutu's more of like a change of speed guy. So it really opened the door for Puka to do a lot of things. You would need a similar confluence of events for Whittington to get that opportunity this year. Maybe next year, or maybe even late in this year, like maybe he starts taking some snaps from DeMarcus Robinson. I think they definitely see him as someone who can contribute at some point. Do they need him to contribute quickly? He's probably the 4th receiver at this point. He'll get some snaps, but DeMarcus just gets open, man. You're just seeing it in practice right now. Like him and Stafford are just on like a very special wavelength, and he's been doing a little bit more stretch the field type stuff than Cooper has during these early practices. Cooper's been mostly working in his, ball possession type of role in the short and intermediate. So I think DeMarcus has a pretty nice defined role for this offense. So Whittington will get some snaps. Maybe he comes on strong at the end of the year, but I'm not sure that he's going to be like a week 1 contributor.
Adam, you talked about opening the door. For me, I think someone that you wrote about in your latest story there in terms of from Tuesday's practice was Bo Limmer, and him taking first team reps there. Do you see an opening there for him to kind of start the season at center, and then because Jonah Jackson might not be ready? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think they're trying to give him some opportunities. I think there's a little bit of scarring from Gilberto's season on the field.
Yeah,
happened in
even I feel it, Adam.
Yeah, 100. I mean, it got dark around there, is what everyone always says. Just like the way that offensive line. So I think they're doing some cross training. They're letting Limmer get comfortable. They're letting Steve kind of knock off the dust there at left guard a little bit after he's been working at center for most of camp. They've been pretty happy with Zach Thomas, and Zach Thomas has had a really good preseason too, as well as Warren McClendon. Joe Noteboom hasn't played in the preseason. He's only been in joint practices because he's a vet and his role is pretty defined. But they've been happy with Zach Thomas. They've been happy with Bo Limmer. They've been happy with Warren McClendon so far. So they feel pretty good about the depth there on the offensive line. I think for Limmer, like they're very happy. I think it would be a pretty dark situation if they had to like trust center to a rookie 6th round pick. It would have to be like a real just series of disasters to get to that point. But I do think, they like him and they feel like he's a really good depth piece moving forward for them.
Yeah, and then the other question I had for you was in terms of how surprised was the release of Jerry Jacobs, and then what does that do for does that open up the door for someone to who was in the bubble in that secondary to make the team now?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. It felt like he was kind of trending towards being the fourth cornerback on the team. They wanted a veteran, and he, used to play for Aubrey Pleasant in Detroit, so he has some real comfort with the defense and the verbiage and everything else. So they felt like he was someone who could come in and contribute right away. So I was a little surprised by that. Um, it's going to be really interesting to see what decisions they make in the secondary because they are mostly playing safeties at the star cornerback right now. It's Russ Yeast. Quinnen Lake's the starter. Russ Yeast and Jalen McCullough have been really competing for that second job. So maybe they decide to keep both of those guys, Yeast and McCullough. Maybe they decide to keep both of those and keep another cornerback. I don't know. Maybe that's Jason Taylor. We'll see. But it does it adds a little stakes for those secondary guys heading into this last preseason game.
Gilbert.
Adam, with Victor asking about the defense, I want to stick to the defensive side, and maybe we haven't seen too much of them because they're not playing the preseason. But what have you seen from Jared Verse and Braden Fisk? And obviously, we all want to see that defensive front. Life after Aaron Donald. You got the big four, hopefully the big four with Byron Young and Kobe Turner. But I'll put you on the spot too. Is one player better than the other? Because I keep seeing good reviews on Braden Fisk there. But just those two guys, what have you seen from them in camp?
I think Fisk has won his matchups a little bit more than Verse has so far. I don't know what that means in terms of development. I mean, they were only taking 20 spots apart. So they're pretty comparable in terms of the draft and all that. They both have looked really good though, especially against the Cowboys. They both had some really good moments. Fisk looked just like a game wrecker against the Chargers, but it's hard to know what to make of that offense right now. Yeah. So
yeah, it's not good.
It's not been great. I wish I were in Houston to see because that's going to be a really good test for those two guys. But they both seem like they're going to be ready to contribute pretty immediately. The defensive front's going to be really different this year. I was talking with Bobby Brown about this a couple of days ago, and he was talking about it like it feels like they're in college again because last year you knew AD was going to play 85 to 90% of snaps, and he was going to do it all at the 3 or 4 tech. So you didn't really have to focus on that position because you knew most of those snaps were going to AD. Now they're really all going to have to contribute however many defensive linemen that they keep. They're going to keep a nice rotation going there at outside linebacker, but it seems like Verse and Fisk are going to have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it plays out. And part of me feels like people are overlooking the Aaron Donald thing, but then you see, the depth that they're building, and especially the way Kobe Turner played last year, the way that Chris Shula has talked about Kobe Turner, how he's going to be used to, get matchups that are favorable for him, the way Aaron Donald will use, and that says a lot if you're going to get matchups like that. So, we'll see how that plays out there for Verse and Fisk. But I'm very curious, and maybe I'm going back and forth, but I'm going back to the offense. I just want to see how this tandem looks with and another tandem because Fisk and Verse are one, but Corum and Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams, we know that he's had the injury issues. His rookie year, the year I was there, he got hurt on the opening kickoff. Last year, he got hurt for about 4 games, but the difference last year, they really needed him to be a dynamic offense. He comes back, they pick it up right away, and now they get Blake Corum, which is a little bit of a surprise pick there, but I thought it was a good one because of Kyren Williams' injury history. He's going technically into a contract year because he's not a first-round pick. So this dynamic here with Corum and Williams, how do you see it playing out? Do you think they could complement each other because they're also a little similar, body types, skill set, things like that. But I guess how do you see that playing out?
So Kyren's going into year 3. So this is a year where he could try to position himself for an extension. We'll see. Corum. So I thought that was interesting on draft night when they drafted Corum and Sean was talking about how similar a lot of the things that Kyren does, Corum does. I'm wondering, as you're seeing a trend of teams valuing their first string running back less, that there's also a trend of valuing your second string running back more. Because like if you fear injury at the position, then you really need a good insurance policy. And Kyren, unfortunately, just his history like does require you to think about that. So I thought it was interesting that they got someone who has a lot of similarities in terms of his running style. He's aggressive, but he waits for his blocks. Really, really good inside the 10. Can catch the ball out of the backfield. They both have looked really good in camp so far. It seems like they're working well together. It's a good running back room, like even beyond them. Like Ronnie Rivers was a really good backup last year, and he just happened to get hurt the same day that Kyren did, and go on the IR too. And then Boston Scott's had a really good preseason, and they like him in that return role. He might actually have a role in that capacity for them this year. So it's a good room. I think that they're both going to get a lot of work. I think Kyren's still the guy. But he's never going to be the 90-95% of snaps that he was prior to his ankle injury last year. They're just not going to do that to his body again because, like you said, Gilberto, like they really just, were a different team when he came back from that injury. Like the energy he brought to that offense is just night and day. So they can't afford to have that happen again. And if it does, at least they have Corum, who is still someone who can keep the ball moving.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you in terms of last season. This team, there wasn't. This was your first year covering the team, and there wasn't a lot of expectation with the Rams. And then now, after the signings and the draft this season. What is a reasonable, like right now everybody's predicting stuff, they're coming up with predictions, but for you as a beat reporter, what's a reasonable expectation for this Rams team? Because you even have someone like Tom Brady saying that they can challenge the Kansas City Chiefs as someone that can dethrone them. So what is a reasonable expectation? Because I think a lot of fans are coming, like we cover the Rams on here, but we just want to know in terms of the outside, like we are locked into this team. So what's a reasonable expectation to really have on this team?
I didn't know that Brady quote. That's news to me. That is high praise. That's interesting. I'd be surprised if they're that team this year. I just don't know. Like they lost Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Like the offense should be better. Like Jonah Jackson is an improvement for that offensive line. Like Coleman Shelton was great, but this is a completely different body type to reinforce that offensive line. Puka's going to be a year older. Cooper seems healthy. DeMarcus is like already has chemistry with Stafford, Kyren, and Corum, like we just talked about. Parkinson has looked really, really good, and Davis Allen is a capable pass catching tight end until Higbee gets back. That offense is going to be really good. I have no idea what this defense is going to be. They feel like they got better in certain places. They got different caliber veterans in the secondary. They brought Darius Williams back. They brought in Tre'Davious White. They feel like those guys can be really stabilizing forces for them, but like just how much can you expect from those young guys? Like, I like Kobe Turner and Byron Young a lot. I think that they both work really hard and they're going to figure out whatever this next step in their development is, but it's going to be an adjustment without Aaron Donald. They're playing a second place schedule this year instead of a third place. It's not terribly tough, but so I think they're a wild card team. Like I'm very, especially in the NFC, like Stafford is still a top 3 quarterback in the NFC. Like, I don't care. Like it's him, it's Goff, and it's Jalen Hurts. And like, really, no one else really comes close to those 3 as far as I'm concerned in the NFC. Maybe Jordan Love does this year. But so I think that they're definitely a wild card team. Maybe this is the year for the Niners that, the top heavy roster comes back to bite them and they can sneak into a division team. just depends. I don't know what this defense is going to be. I genuinely just don't know until we see that first game against a very good offense in the Lions. Much better offense than the Seahawks were in week 1 last year.
And then my last question for you, Adam. This was historically one of the worst special teams that we've ever seen in the NFL. I think it was like ranked 8th all time in terms of how bad it was. Just from seeing, training camp and now preseason, do they just need to be average to be good enough? We have Josh Carty, you have good return guys. How do you see the special teams working out this year?
Carty definitely stabilizes kicking a lot. Like that's going to be a big deal. They still kind of need to figure out how to cover Ethan Evans' punts. Like he's really strong, but just the coverage is still preseason, so who knows? But it still just isn't quite there. I think last year's special teams had 2 factors, right? Like Chase Blackburn was first year as special teams coordinator, so he's still figuring out like the rhythms of the team and things like that. So there's still a bit of a transition period. Also, I think last year where it really showed the youth and the lack of depth on the Rams roster, because they made so many salary cap sacrifices last year. And I think that lack of depth really showed up in the special teams. There were a lot of guys who just, undrafted free agents or guys who aren't on the roster anymore, who had to fill roles there. I think they'll have a deeper roster. We're going to have to see how it translates once it's on the field, though.
A lot of insight there from Adam Grossbard. You got special teams conversation here. Look at that, Adam. You're bringing all the insight and the nuggets here because you are the best beat reporter. Yeah, you've been the best Rams beat reporter of the OC Register for the last 3 years, man. So I'm gonna keep giving you credit for that, Adam. And 2022, man, it was a rough year. I keep bringing it up, and I'm glad you brought it up too. I went through a lot there. It's like a recovery team here somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm the president of the team there for 2022. I see Kevin and Jordan and Sarah every now and then. But Adam, I started. It's not really a question, but I'm gonna let you go with this. I started by asking you about NCAA college football, the video game. You went to SMU, fitting that you cover the Rams. Eric Dickerson went to SMU there back in the day. Are you playing with SMU when you're playing this video game here that people like to play?
Yeah, I am. Like, they're the perfect caliber, right? Like they're the first year in a new conference. They still kind of need to build up their roster.
Yeah, it fits.
That conference, like it's a good stepping stone team. I think I think my next one, just because I really like the stadium, I might try to do something with Oregon State. Like I just really like that home environment. But
okay, Beavers.
Water.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're not picking Alabama. You're not gonna steamroll people with Ohio State. I like this approach here because SMU needs to win every now and then. So I like that, Adam.
And then with Oregon State, one of 2 remaining Pac-12 teams.
Oh, yeah, they're still barely.
Well, they will let you play with the conferences if you want to. You can realign everything. So we'll see. We'll see what I decide to do with that.
The Pac-2 not doing well, but you know who's doing much better? Adam Grossbard of the OC Register Rams beat reporter. Adam, thank you for joining us and dropping the knowledge and dropping the heat. We really appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam.